Don't you dare look at those recruiting rankings. Put them away. Don't give them a look. A lot of work to be done. It's only June. Put them away for quite some time. And Mario Cristobal and staff are getting the work in here in June. Of course, we got Miami football talk for all of you as we do each and every Thursday night right here at the Voice of College Football, episode number 253. And a special treat tonight. It's been way too long. We got Brad Tejeda on the line from Canes Insight to help us through the recruiting weekends past and the one coming up this weekend. Brad, how you doing tonight?
Mark, thank you so much for having me, man. It's been a while. I appreciate it. Can't wait to talk some Canes football.
We will make the disclaimer that Brad's got an issue with his camera.
Yes,
said,
sir.
Do you mind if I come on tonight, even though I've got an issue with my camera? I said, if we can hear you, Brad, we would love to see you, but as long as we can hear the insight and the info, we are good to go. So, Brad, we appreciate you stopping by. I know that you got a ton going on, so thank you so much for joining us. You got to be pumped up about some of the names that have made their way to campus. If we look past to the last couple weekends, so. Yeah, you'd mentioned to me before we started to record, hey, let's just go through position groups and you can organize it that way. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. We can go skill position players and who you're excited about in regards to targets, official visits, camp participation, and across the board.
Yeah, Mark, it's been quite a journey for the Miami Hurricanes football team as far as recruiting the last couple weekends. As we know, man, this staff is doing a tremendous job when it comes to building relationships with these young men. And we're getting big time names every single weekend. And as you know now with recruiting, you never know who's going to come through Coral Gables. And it seems like we've been getting a ton of visitors that have not, publicly been announced, if not ever. Who knows if we ever will find those names out, but it has been interesting, man, and there are some big-time targets in every position group that the University of Miami is not only going after, but as you can see, we're in the top 4, top 5, top 3, and we're in a very good place with a lot of these young men, and it comes down to building relationships and showing exactly what Miami is planning to do in the future.
Yeah, so the relationship building is one that a lot of people don't account for when they're looking at rankings and they want to see commitments and they want to see this all just, they know that June's a big deal and they see all the guys coming to campus, but man, this is a long grind. And in some instances to get a commit a year in advance is okay. That's fine. But in a lot of instances, especially I think the higher you go up the chart in regards to a player having a ton of options, it may work against you if he commits too early. So you want to be able to kind of build it to a place where they're ready to commit, they're making the right choice, they're firm on it, and they're truly committed.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Mark, I mean, this is recruiting. It's fluent. It changes every single day. Even if someone verbally commits, until they sign that line on that sheet of paper, nothing else is cement. And as we know, recruiting, like I mentioned, with building relationships, that's only part of it. You still got to go out there, play football, and win some football games. And that is something that Miami's going to have to do and prove in order to, leave some of these commits that we currently have to stick. And also a lot of these big time targets that we're going to be talking about, if they want to be at the University of Miami, we have to start winning football games. We have to start going to that ACC Coastal, winning the championship and even the playoff in the next few years. And when you bring in a head coach like Mario Cristobal, the staff he has put together, and now you have an awesome Alonzo Highsmith as your football pretty much director, overlooking everything that Mario Cristobal does. It's going to be amazing to watch.
We appreciate everybody being here at the Voice of College Football. Leave those comments and questions there in the live chat. We will pass them on to Brad. Brad Tejeda, got to catch his work there at Canes Insight. You see his Twitter handle there as well. Again, it's Canes Insight. Brad helps us out from time to time, and it's always a great discussion. So, skill position players, who gets you excited? Who may be you fairly confident in making that decision for Miami? Who may be, based on your resources and your information, there might be a little bit more work to do?
I mean, I think when you talk about the offensive side of the ball, before we get into the main position, obviously the quarterback, you got to look at that skill position at the wide receiver. And when it comes to South Florida, we all know that some of the best talent that ever comes out of any, area of the United States is South Florida when it comes to that wide receiver position. You got guys all over the NFL that is, born and raised in South Florida. So when you talk about the wide receiver, you got to talk about Josh Gaddis as a coach and who he is actually offering right now. And you got to go with, at the top of the board, you got Brandon Ennis out of American Heritage. He has pretty much got an offer by everyone. He is the top wide receiver in this class. He's got a top 6 currently of Ohio State, LSU, USC, Miami, Bama, and A&M. And obviously right now, Ohio State seems to be the front runner in that with Alabama as well. But Miami has been, doing a very good job, again, that R-word relationship and building that trust in Brandon Ennis straight from the beginning of when they recruited him a few years ago. So Brandon Ennis is at the top of the list. But as far as who Miami seems the most confident in right now, it's got to be the guys of the Jaylen Browns of the world. You got Lamar Seymour, who's a current commit for the University of Miami. Who knows what happens with somebody like him? He just recently took a visit to UCF. He does have a few other visits planned in line. And then another guy that was recently committed to Miami, decommitted, and got a lot more interest in, some of the big time programs like Georgia and Alabama. And that's Andy Jean. And even though he was decommitted at one point, he recently just came back to the University of Miami, met with Josh Gaddis, and he feels very good, very comfortable with the direction that Josh Gaddis is putting this program. So Andy Jean coming back in this class looks like a very realistic possibility. But then when you're looking at current situations, the last 48 to 72 hours, Mark, you got to look at Nathaniel Joseph, who recently just decommitted from Clemson, is visiting Louisville this weekend as we speak. That program right now in Louisville is doing a very good job as far as recruiting and, again, building relationships with young men. They have been getting a lot of good recruits committing in the last couple days. So that is one name to watch. But next weekend at Legends Camp, which is going to be, bigger than a Paradise Camp, this is going to be the biggest recruiting visit that Miami's had in a very long time. Nathaniel Joseph will be back at the University of Miami next weekend. And I expect him, to trend towards the University of Miami. And I haven't even mentioned a guy like Hakeem Williams as well. So Miami is in a very good spot for, 4 big-time targets in South Florida.
Get Brad Tejada on the line. And as Falconer X says right here, Brad's show with recruiting is excellent, in-depth. Falconer X, appreciate you being here as always. Obviously, you check out Brad's work. Everybody else needs to do that as well. Canes Insight is the place to be. And again, Brad's got an issue with his camera. If you just showed up, no issue here, though. We can hear him clear. We get the rundown on recruiting and everything that's going on with Brad and Canes Insight. And Brad, while we're on the topic, anything you'd like to highlight in regards to people heading over to Canes Insight?
No, man. As you know, Canes Insight is one of the original places to go for all your Miami Hurricanes recruiting updates on the field, off the field. All those guys do tremendous work over there, man. So go ahead and hit canesinsight.com.
Yeah, you can only get so much here. We love that you're here, and we provide as much as we possibly can. But Brad's at it, and everyone there at Canes Insight every day, all the time, full throttle. So get on over there for the take from Canes Insight. Offensive line. So that's been an improving area, but not championship standard. Some people would argue that maybe the offensive line talent in South Florida is good, but it's not up to the level of, secondary players, wide receivers, running backs, etc. Offensive line. Do you think that Mario Cristobal, being former offensive lineman himself and taking a lot of pride in that, is off to a good start in regards to building those relationships, making those contacts?
Yeah, I think when we first got this staff together, Mark, you land on Mario Cristobal, who's obviously played the offensive line. So, coming right in from the jump, when you get a head coach like Mario Cristobal, offensive line is going to be number one. But then when he brings in his right-hand man and Alex Mirabal, who is also the top offensive line coach in the country, that just brings more to the table, more for your resume, more to be able to get, those 4 or 5-star guys on the offensive line consistently coming through Coral Gables week in and week out and actually having a chance to potentially land them, where in the past it didn't seem like that was happening. We were going after those 2-3-star guys where they might have had the height but not the weight, or vice versa. And it was more of a project builder that you're going to see 2 or 3 years down the line, where now it's looking like a lot of these prospects that we're going after, not only do the measurables match up to what we're looking for in the offensive line here in the future, but as far as playing time, these guys can come right in and play, possibly year one and absolutely year two. You look at Francis Mayoga, that's one of the top offensive line in the country, who's related to Coach Salavea, the defensive line coach for the University of Miami, and has very good ties to Mario Cristobal and Alex Maribal. When you talk about relationships, it goes back to when they were at Oregon, when they were recruiting Francis. So it's very key for the University of Miami to not only continue to build that trust and relationship with Francis, but I think they're in a very good shape to not only be in that top three, but to get a crack at him. But obviously Alabama will be that team to beat for Francis. But we already have 2 offensive linemen committed, and Frankie Tanoloa, that's the Australian commit. And then you also got, the lead ambassador for this class, it seems like, and Antonio Tripp, offensive lineman. But we just had an offensive lineman over the weekend, this past weekend, in Connor Liu visit, who seemed like we're in a very good spot for. But the one guy I want to focus on is Olois Alayan. I don't know if that's really how you pronounce it, but he is one of the best offensive linemen in the country. And he is getting a lot of smoke, a lot of trend to, the Alabamas, the Georgias of the world. He's, currently visiting Georgia, but I know Miami is very big into the mix. And he's actually the teammate of Jackson Carver, tight end, who recently just committed to Miami over the weekend, who's a, triple threat, 4 threat as far as athlete. The guy played track and field, hockey, lacrosse, and he played football for only 1 year, and he was committed to Notre Dame at one point for lacrosse. So Jackson Carver is a huge athlete, and he's a big-time get for the University of Miami, but I don't think they're done at that tight end group, and it could be coming very shortly.
Brad Tejada is on the line breaking down the Canes for us, and of course the month of June is crucial. We are only 5 to 6 weeks away from ACC kickoff media day. They're probably in Charlotte, as it typically is, and then right off into August camp, and we're off and running through the 2022 season, but a lot of work to do for 2023 and 24, and in some cases even 2025, with a number of camps going on and official and unofficial visits this month. Brad, we know that Mario Cristobal built his resume, but more so built his skill level in regards to recruiting. It's there's a lot of facets to it that you got to be able to sell. You got to be able to sell your vision. You've got to be able to build a relationship and connect with the young men. You've got to be able to just sheer flat out organize your staff and target the right people, not waste your time in certain instances, areas of the country. And really, it's just a multifaceted effort. He obviously learned quite a bit at Alabama. He executed that as well at Oregon, in bringing in some top of the line Pac-12 recruiting classes. Do you see, not just with the evidence, but in the approach, a difference between Manny Diaz? Classes weren't awful by any stretch, but the upgrade in the approach and in the results?
Oh, absolutely, Mark. I mean, you're seeing it, very quickly here. As far as the type of players that we already currently have on the team and what we're adding, I think Mario Cristobal and the staff that he put together, I mean, this is going to be a class that you're going to see this year, in the next 2 or 3 years, potentially get us into playoff contention. And with the current guys that we have on the roster, a lot of the starter players or guys that we're trying to put a lot of potential in this year, these guys are still, very young, sophomores, redshirt sophomores. So they still have a lot of more time on this team. And when you're able to build that camaraderie and what Mario Cristobal has put together as far as a staff, I think, being in the ACC right now and seeing, the picture of where we could possibly be, I think it's a very, very eye-opening experience to where we can potentially take over the ACC this year if we do all the things right. But again, It's going to come down to winning football games consistently. And we got to see what this staff puts together. But I can tell you, the staff has put together a pretty good official visit for this upcoming weekend starting tomorrow, Mark. There's a few names I want to go over. You got Jaden Wayne, defensive end from Washington. This is a big time, recruit. He's got Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, and Miami, all going after him right now. He's 6'5", 245 pounds. He's got that Cyrus Moss type frame, exactly what Miami's going after. Everyone wants to get that clone of Greg Rousseau, and I think you're starting to see the type of players that we're going after in the defensive end position, specifically at the pass rusher, at what frame and what size we're looking for and what they do and bring to the table. And Jaden Wayne fits that very well. So he's going to be a big-time name to look after for. Another one's going to be the JUCO wide receiver, Colby Young from Scranton. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. When you look at the frame and what he brings to the table, Mark, like I just mentioned, he's a JUCO, so this is a guy who's got to make a decision very soon. He recently visited Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. He's visiting Miami this weekend. And when you look at his film, Mark, what he brings to the table, he's specifically used for that jump ball, that fade route deep in the end zone. He's good at locating the ball in the air, getting those hands at the highest point and bringing that ball down. He really gives me that Darrell Langham type of ability when it comes to making big-time plays, in the red zone or needing that big-time catch. And Colby Young's going to have to come in here right away and kind of prove that he belongs here, because we do need another receiver to make it that impact. So he's one more guy. And then Emory Williams, of course. You want to talk about the quarterback position, Mark. It's been very interesting for the quarterback recruiting for Miami. The last few years, we've been able to land some of the best recruits as far as the quarterback position. We're in a very good shape when you look at that quarterback room, when you got the three guys already in the table. But then when you look at the three prospects that we're looking at right now, and Dante Moore, Jaden Rashada, and Emory Williams. Emory Williams recently had a private workout at Miami. Everything's been going great. We were one of the first teams to go after Emory Williams. So again, talking about relationships, this is a young man that's been wanting to commit to Miami for a very long time. And I think Miami has kind of played it cool right now because, like I mentioned, you got two big-time names in Dante Moore and Jaden Rashada. As we know, recently, the Cali native just pushed back his commitment date after visiting Florida, which wasn't a good sign for the Gators. And he has one official visit left, Mark, and it could potentially be the University of Miami as that last visit. He did push back that commitment date to June 26th. So there is a decision to be made shortly. And this weekend is going to be interesting to me, because I think a lot of people have asked, do we possibly bring in two quarterbacks this cycle? And this weekend, if Emory Williams, decides to get that green light and commit to the University of Miami, that's going to be, a very big thing for a young man like Jaden Rashada, because he does have other offers on the table like Ole Miss and Texas A&M that he could potentially go to as well.
All right, E-Dub, Brad caught your question there. So there's a possibility of two quarterbacks in the 2023 class. We've got Marcus Enriquez, who's asking, I'm losing track now. He had three names on the board. He had Wayne, Hicks, and Bain, and the possibility of getting those three.
Yeah, I think with Ruben Bain specifically, obviously, I think we're in a very good spot for Ruben Bain. He's the legacy of our guy Tolbert Bain. That is his uncle. And, talk about building relationships again. You look at the last cycle in Wesley Basant. I think you look at Ruben Bain, he's the perfect example of something that, what we did with Wesley. I think Ruben Bain is a Miami Hurricane when it's all said and done. And you said David Hicks, I believe,
yes,
the 5-star from Katy, Texas. He was at Miami this past weekend for an official visit. And, he gives Miami a lot of thinking to do. I think Miami is definitely in the top three. I don't quite think we land David Hicks, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do with this staff that we got. And Jaden Wayne, I think this weekend right here is going to be very telling for a guy like Jaden Wayne. I thought Miami was possibly the fourth team looking out from the outside in, but this weekend will be very telling for someone like Jaden Wayne. If I had to give it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say about a 6. But after the next 48 hours, it could change.
Folks, we know you enjoyed the conversation here with Brad Tejeda. It's a special treat this week on our Miami show here at the Voice of College Football. We appreciate Brad being here for, of course, the complete look. You go to Canes Insight. And please hit the like button here. That's one thing we can ask you to do. Certainly let people know that we're here talking college football every day and talking Canes on a regular basis. And of course, we've got 130 or so that have come through the chat at least, and about 29 likes. So at least hit the like button. Please help us build the channel. Went through the offensive line, skill players, quarterbacks, defensive front. Who are the standouts there?
Yeah, as far as the defensive front, Mark, we talked about a little bit about David Hicks, obviously, who's a 5-star. You got Samuel Mbappe as well, who Miami is in a very good spot for. He's got some good ties to a current player on the team in Jaleel Skinner. So he's got the good frame, good size that you're looking for. Again, anytime you talk about defensive line, you want that Greg Russo type, and Samuel, definitely brings that to the table. We were very early on a athlete of Nichols Harbor. But obviously, with some of the big dogs coming in and, him being a big time track athlete, I expect him to honestly go pro it and go to the Olympics in track. But you also got By Job from Norman, Oklahoma. Miami's very high on him, but like I just said, he's from Norman, so he could potentially, be an Oklahoma Sooner. You got Ruben Bain, who we recently talked about. I think we're in a very good spot for him. Sadir Mitchell's another good guy. I don't know if we are in the best shape for him, but he is a name to look out for. And then you got John Walker, who's going to be visiting this weekend from Kissimmee, Osceola. That will be another name to look out for. He's a big body guy. You talk about the Demetrius Jacksons, the Lichtensteins that we just brought in, those pluggers, the guys that we're going to need for those linebackers to roam free. John Walker's the next guy in line to do something like that. So it'll be interesting to see what he does.
Brad, switching gears to the 2022 season, question coming in regards to, again, from our guy E-Dub Kane, the position group that will take the biggest jump forward this fall.
I think this is a really tough question to answer, but it's a good thing, right? There's so many positions you could say. We could say the offensive line, just based off the coaches that we're bringing to the table, along with the experience that we have and all the guys coming back. The camaraderie is going to be there. You also look at the running back position, right? We're about 4 or 5 deep with a lot of skills that is going to be bring to the table. We know what Josh Gaddis likes to do with our running backs. And then you bring in a coach like Kevin Smith, who can do a lot for this running back group. That's going to be good as well. But if I got to pick one, Mark, it's got to be the cornerback room. I think the cornerback room, you look at a guy like Jamil Adai, he is not only a good recruiter, but he's a great developer, great teacher. We stole him from a great organization at Georgia. And I think when you look at the position group we have so many, not only young guys, but we have a lot of good veterans, the DJ Ivies, the Al Blades. Gilbert Fryerson's obviously going to be moving a lot more inside. You got Avonte Williams that could play safety and corner. You got so many weapons on the cornerback position. And you bring in a guy like Daryl Porter Jr. as well, who we haven't really talked about, the transfer guy, who I think potentially will start alongside with Tyreek Stevenson as well. So when you bring all those guys together and you bring a coach like Jamel Adai, what he's been doing at Georgia the past couple of years, I think it's got to be the cornerback room.
So we'll stay on that side of the football, but get back into the recruiting discussion as we have made our way through offense and started on the defensive line. So if anybody's joining us right now, as people continue to filter in, you know what you do. You're only getting a slice of it. So wait for the video to post and then check out the full discussion afterwards. We've got Brad Tejeda on the line from Canes Insight. So you've talked about it on here. I know you've covered it a zillion times and really gone in depth on Canes Insight regarding the lack of linebacker play in recent years for quite a long time. And now looking at the 2023 class and who the targets are there for a very important position, where do we stand?
With the linebacker position group right now, there's a couple guys that stand out in my opinion. You got Malik Bryant, right off the bat, he will be committing July 23rd in Miami with another prospect in Peyton Kirkland at the offensive line. Both of those guys will be visiting next weekend for Legends Camp. And Malik Bryant's one of the biggest names to look out for at the linebacker position group. It's going to be between us and Alabama and, of course, Florida, who's been on him as well. But you also got Raul Aguirre. He's going to be, another name to look out for. I don't think we land him, but, I think with the staff that we have, you can't rule out anyone at this moment. You also got Robbie Washington, who's a current commit in this class, and Tamir Robinson, who in my opinion is one of the freakish athletes out there. He's 6'3", 240 pounds, and he runs a 40 and I believe like a 4.45, 4.5. So he's a very physical specimen. He can do just about everything. Another guy is Tackett Curtis and Stanquan Clark out of Miami Killian as well.
All right, Mr. HD, we'll just stay right in line with you. Cornerback is up next, Brad. So cornerback position in the 23 class.
Yeah, with the cornerback position, I think the most recent name you got to look out for is Sharief Denson. We recently just offered him this past weekend after working out with Jamil Adai. He is a name that's been, climbed up the boards. He's a frame that is similar to a Kamari Rogers. I think someone in the chat mentioned Chris Graves earlier when I was talking about the cornerback position. Those are two guys that Sharief Denson kind of fit. But he is a prodigy from Florida as well. So Florida is in the mix for a guy like Sharief Denson. You also got Kamari McLean, who was at Lake Gibson but is now transferring to Lakeland. Obviously, Florida, Alabama, Miami. I believe Miami is going to push as much as they can to try and get Cormani in Coral Gables as soon as possible. And then last but not least, you probably got Damari Brown. Again, we talk about legacies. Damari Brown's a legacy of Delvin Brown, as you know. I believe it's going to be a Miami and Clemson battle. It seems like the last couple weeks, there's been a lot of Miami-Clemson battles, and it's gone in our favor with a guy like Reed Miska, possibly Nathaniel Joseph. And I wouldn't be surprised if Damari Brown is another one to look out for as well.
As Travis mentions here, my guy, Brad, Mark, great guest. It's also interesting and very exciting for me to find out who my biggest fan is tonight. He's from the Bahamas, CJ Taylor. Mark, your biggest fan from the Bahamas. CJ, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. All right, back to 2022. Okay, look at the class in 22. Who's going to make the impact this season? So if you could kind of project who you think is going to make the biggest splash out of the incoming freshmen.
As far as the incoming freshmen, I think there's a few names you could look out for. I think if I had to give two names, it would have to be Wesley Basant. I think when you look at the linebacker position right now, we need as much bodies as we could get and guys that could line up and play football. And Wesley is one of those guys. And when you got, a coach in Charlie Strong and then Kevin Steele above him, I think you're going to ultimately put these guys in the right place at the right time. And Wesley is a football player. You also got Cyrus Moss, defensive lineman. We talk about that body and that frame of a guy like Greg Russo, and Cyrus Moss has the bend, the capability and the speed to definitely get in the backfield and cause some havoc. And, I'll even throw one more. I'll say Jaleel Skinner on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, when you look at the spring game, Josh Gaddis definitely uses a lot of tight ends in that double tight end front. We do a lot of drag routes, a lot of, blocking and delay, getting those tight ends in space. And I think Jaleel Skinner, once he puts a little bit more weight into this college program, which is going to come with just a little bit more time, I think the sky's the limit for someone like him. And I think ultimately, when you look at the tight end room, I think Jaleel Skinner has the ability to have the highest potential out of everyone.
All right, Chad Hudson, you got it right. Hit the like button, lazy. All right. Thank you for that. Encouraging people to hit the like button. It's simple. It only takes a second. So thank you for that. Keep in mind, everyone, people are dropping names and position groups. Brad has covered us pretty much start to finish offense and defense. So again, check out the rest of the conversation. Then we will be able to post this video. It will post automatically, and you can catch what you missed. All right, Falconer X, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the contribution. Thank you for that. Charles Johnson, good to see you, and others. Brad, is there a player from a previous class already in the roster, whatever the classification, whatever the year, that you think has underachieved, but you haven't given up on him? You think that there's still something there that could break out, and maybe this is the right coaching staff to get it out of him?
Oh, absolutely. There's a bunch of names, but the first name that comes to mind has got to be Jafari Harvey. I think Jafari Harvey, when you look at when we brought him into this recruiting class a few years ago, when you turn on the tape, man, he had everything that you look for in a defensive line. And I think now that we have the coaching staff, that the scheme that we're bringing to the table, Jafari Harvey is pretty much at that point where he's got to prove everything he can to not only get the playing time that he wants and deserves, but when you look at the guys that we brought in from the transfer portal, these current players that are on the Miami Hurricanes the past couple of years, you know, they got a lot more pressure on them now when you bring in proven guys from other conferences that have already shown that they could do some things. You know, you talk about the Antonio Moultries, you know, the Mezzadors, even a guy like Jacob Lichtenstein. I think someone like Lichtenstein and D-Rob or D-Jack, I'm sorry, Demetrius Jackson, those two guys, you want to talk about big body, big frame guys of what we need on this defensive line in order to get these pass rushers that are athletic, you know, and these linebackers to be in space. You need those big body, big frame guys like we had a few years ago with the Gerald Willises, the Kendrick Nortons. So I think those two guys, you know, of transfer portal guys, of Lichtenstein and Demetrius Jackson, are going to be very monumental for this defense.
Lichtenstein comes to mind as a guy who put on a number of pressures during the spring game, a sack or two, batted some passes in the air, caused a deflected interception, really was causing all sorts of havoc. So that was good to see out of him. Got Brad Tejeda on the line. And the reason you don't see Brad, camera issues. No worries, though. We can hear him, and that's what we need. So we appreciate Brad stepping in and giving us some insight, pardon the pun. Cane's Insight is where you got to go. Cane's Insight, and check out Brad and the rest of the crew right there. Brad, how did it hit you here just in the last couple of days when the reports came out about the NCAA traveling to Miami, looking into NIL? You know, depending on the article, and I didn't sit and like read any articles word for word, but I skimmed a bunch of them, and the wording quite a bit different. Some made it sound like a crackdown. I'm looking at SI right now. Others just, it's an inquiry. The NCAA wanting to know, what's this process all about? Not necessarily just at Miami, but anywhere. What's going on? So how did that hit you in regards to the NCAA making a move here?
Yeah, you know, I thought it was kind of funny, to be honest with you, Mark, because, you know, for most people that have, you know, kept a good insight on the NIL and what, you know, Miami has brought to the table, it seems like John Ruiz, you know, who's been a heavy part of all of it, he's kind of been the front runner of this whole NIL thing. So I think when you look at it, I believe the NCAA was going there to kind of check up on everything and kind of, you know, get some information on how John Ruiz run things, because I think John has been, you know, very, very forward, you know, obviously on social media, not only with rival fans, but just in general, going on, you know, various platforms and kind of spreading the word on how he does things. He's not hiding anything. And I think when you look at the past of what the Miami Hurricanes, you know, when we've gotten into these type of allegations, it never really felt in the favor of Miami. And when you talk about, you know, the organization that UM is trying to build now, the athletic director in Radakovich, the head coach in Mario Cristobal, and now the head guy in charge of football in Alonzo Highsmith, I think, you know, they knew a lot of this going forward in advance. You know, when you look at last season, you know, getting a small taste of it, I think they did their homework, and I think they were very comfortable and kind of knew that John Ruiz was kind of doing the right thing. So I think they weren't too worried about something like that. And I think you're going to see that nothing can be done about the University of Miami. And in all honesty, it's laughable because you see what Nick Saban and, the Jimbo Fishers of the world, what they're doing, in the public eye. And it's very obvious that those type of programs have been doing this for years. And instead of going to those programs, instead they go to a University of Miami. And I think at the end of the day, Mark, it's because the logo, in fact, holds weight.
Yeah, so let's stay on that line of thinking, because everybody here knows the history. You guys are big Miami fans, of course, even if you weren't around for it. The Canes emerged in the early 80s. Howard Schnellenberger, legendary work that he did in just saving this program with the help of a lot of people, but still. So they crashed the party on Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Texas, the schools that ruled college football for decades and decades. And a lot of people didn't like that. And the way Miami played football, the way Miami carried itself, a lot of things rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And I'm not here to say one way or the other in regards to the way the NCAA handled that, and if they wielded, I know a lot of people would have their definite opinions on it, but how the NCAA approached it back then, maybe not wanting Miami to continue to succeed. Okay, here we are, 20 years plus away from a championship, and even at that point, I don't know that Miami was necessarily, I should say from watching the games, covering the games and all of that, that at that point, Miami still had a bit of a target on its back, but not nearly what it had 10 years, 15 years earlier. Things had kind of settled in. The program was run fairly similar, and it's not like you could turn on a Miami game in 2001 and tell a big difference. I'm not talking about talent. I'm talking about the swag on the field and the way the game was approached. So do you feel that that's still out there? Do you think, and especially by people with influence and authority, because that's where it really matters in terms of targeting Miami?
It's a little bit different now. You look at, not just last year, but this upcoming year, with the quarterback that just recently committed to Tennessee a few months ago, what he was, the amount of money that NIL was projectedly, to go to that young man. It kind of puts a lot on the table for, you're not really just recruiting what they do on the football field now. Now you got to kind of have to worry about, what they're really asking for, right? And when you look at, certain position groups that you have on the team, that's where you got to kind of, buckle down and figure out, is this young man, worth paying for? Because unfortunately that's what you're doing now. You're paying for a lot of these, young men, especially 5-star and these predominant, main positions at the quarterback, wide receiver position. You saw some guys in the transfer portal as well, getting paid a lot of money. There's no telling, why they went to that school. It could have been potentially for money. So it does kind of put a damper on things when it comes to recruiting and in all aspects of college football. But, it will be interesting to see what happens in the future. But I think Miami is in a very good position going forward.
Falcon Rex, appreciate your contribution. Says Miami has more lawyers on NIL than Bama has bagmen. Falcon Rex also had another interesting question for people that like to get some insight into how Canes Insight does it. So Falcon Rex is saying right here that basically asking Brad, how do you get the live interviews with the high school kids? They give the names a personality. You can tell a lot from how they handle themselves.
Yeah, man. Again, we talked about all show about, what this coaching staff does and how well they are as far as recruiting, these young men to be a Miami Hurricane. And I think it goes the same for, a lot of people who have their own platforms and do interviews, whether it be on social media or, forums and things like that. And at the end of the day, it comes to building relationships, man. I think a lot of these young men, they trust in guys like us, to keep things on the low and also build the rapport. Look over their film, see if they have any help on anything. And, I think when you give these young men their platform and you not only talk about what they bring to the table on the football field, but you ask them personal questions, you bring in their parents as well. Because as we know, when it comes to recruiting, you're not just recruiting the young man, you're recruiting their parents as well. And they bring a huge influence, on what you're getting in a young man to your program. So I think with those things alone, man, it's very fun, very interesting to get, young men's opinion, on what they bring to the table on the football field, but also, their personality, because this is more than just a football player at the end of the day.
Absolutely. They're making a huge decision. And from where we stand, if we just continue to get wrapped up in the football and treat them as another number, and okay, we need a tight end. This guy's a tight end. Let's sign him. Uh, yeah, they're making huge commitments, leaving home for the first time for the most part, and placing their future in the hands of a position coach, a coaching staff, a university wanting to make the best decision, and of course the family being involved in wanting the very best. So yeah, we need to, they're going through the same type of situations, issues, problems, challenges that face the rest of us. And we have no idea what's going on in a given time period in somebody's life that we expect to perform on the football field. And that's not always, an easy thing. Caden's going to put you on the spot here. So you can dodge this one if need be, because I know this is a tough call, but he's asking for the next commit.
So I'll actually just give you like 5 or 6 names. That way,
Okay.
I don't necessarily, say exactly who I think it's going to be, but just some guys that I feel very confident that at the end of the day will be a University of Miami Hurricane. You got to start at the running back position of Christopher Johnson Jr. Out of Dillard High School. This guy was the state champ in the 100 and 200 meter. And Miami has recruited him from the beginning, and as we know, some of the bigger dogs have came into the picture, but I feel very confident that Christopher Johnson Jr. we're putting him in a position to where we feel like he can be that running back one. As we know, another name was Cedric Baxter Jr. in that running back position group, and it seems like he is going off to a team like Alabama. And while we haven't even talked about a guy like Mark Fletcher, who could possibly be back into the picture as well. But I think at the end of the day, you got to go at least get 2 running backs. But I think the one running back Miami has been putting a lot of time in, and they feel very confident in, and vice versa. And that's Christopher Johnson Jr. Another guy is going to be Reed McKeska, tight end who recently just visited over the weekend. As we know, he was once committed to Clemson originally, decommitted. And after visiting Miami this past weekend, we now know that he canceled his following visit to the University of Florida. He has shut down his recruitment. And it seems like he's in a very good spot. It sounds like he might potentially be a Miami Hurricane. And you would think, hey, we just landed Jackson Carver, right? Tight end who we talked about a little earlier. You add possibly a guy like Reed. That's 2 tight ends. There's no way we're going to go after another guy, right? Well, you also got Jackson Howard, who we first were recruiting at tight end, but now it looks like he is going to be a defensive end possibly in this recruitment. And for the Miami Hurricanes, it looks like they're in a very good spot as well. So that's another name to look out for, Jackson Howard. Ruben Bain and Jalen Brown, obviously, I don't think they're going to commit right away, but Miami has been in very good shape from the beginning and now to the end with those 2 guys. And Emory Williams, this weekend coming up, the quarterback position is going to be very telling with a guy like Jaden Rashada, who recently pushed his commitment back and has one more official visit that could potentially be the University of Miami. All signs are going to be telling this weekend for a guy like Emory Williams, because we know Miami and Emory have had a very good relationship from the beginning. And if they give him the trigger to pull this weekend as far as commitment, you got your quarterback in Emory Williams. And then Nathaniel Joseph is the hot name right now at the wide receiver position, just decommitted from Clemson. As we know, he's at Louisville right now, but he's got that final visit to Miami and Legends Camp next weekend. And it should be very interesting with him.
Brad has addressed the super chat. Thank you so much for that, Kyler Miami Kane. Thank you for the contribution there. Charles Johnson, I'd be happy with 9-3, 10-2 regular season in 2022. So, Brad, you of course want to win them all. And, I know it's just the first year and there's some progress that needs to be made, but, it's not like they're not all winnable. This team could go to Clemson and win. They could go to Texas A&M and win. It's not highly likely, but those are winnable games. There's nobody on the schedule that's that daunting of a task. Those are really good football teams. Again, I want to state it accurately. I don't expect, the way things stand right this second, I do not expect Miami to win those games, but I would not be shocked in any way of those winning those games. And then they've got of course, the main games in the Coastal with Pitt and North Carolina first and foremost. What would be your realm of satisfaction, not just in terms of a record, but the look at the team and what you expect this year?
I mean, first and foremost, Mark, it's got to be the mentality of the football team. I want to see a completely different, aspect of this team from top to bottom, whether it's the first string, the second string, or the third string. I don't want to see a miss a beat. I know we have the potential. I know we have depth all across the board now when it comes to position groups and also in the trenches. And now we have the coaches that have developed. We are no longer bringing in coaches that we hoped that can develop. We are now bringing in coaches that have proven and developed. You bring in a guy like Charlie Strong, you bring in a guy like Kevin Steele, you bring in a guy like Jamila Dye. I mean, you have position groups that are very stacked, that have brought a lot to the table with the previous staff, and we know what they were able to do. And now you bring in these type of guys. The mentality, first and foremost, has to be there. And also, I think it's got to be the consistency all throughout the football season. You look at in years past, it seems like when we get a couple buys, that's where the Miami Hurricanes slump, because a lot of it has to go with game planning and scheming and putting these young men in the right spots at the right time. And I think that alone is going to go with this coaching staff that we've been talking about in the development. But I think 9-3, 10-2 is definitely got to be the factor. I think you have to not only take care of the Coastal this year, but I got to see us in the ACC championship, not only just giving us a fight, but I would love to see us win that ACC championship.
As Charles tells us here in the chat, Brad has a great channel, no doubt. Brad Tejeda, Canes Insight. It's always a good time. We always appreciate Brad delivering his knowledge and information and just his unique perspective. As Falcon Rex had mentioned earlier, Brad and the folks over at Canes Insight have just a ear to the ground, grassroots type operation where they talk directly and build relationships with these targets and commits that is not easily matched. No question about that. Brad, we appreciate you stopping by. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Anything that you guys have going on that you would like to point everyone to?
No, man, just I hope everyone has a great night, man. And I can't wait for the Miami Hurricanes this season. Continue to check us out at canesinside.com. You could also follow me on Twitter at Tejeda Brad. That's right under there as well. But Mark, man, I appreciate you so much for having me. It's been a long time. And it's also been a long time since the Miami Hurricanes has been back in the prominence of national television week in and week out and being that team. And I hope and I expect this team to get back there very, very soon.
Brad, once again, we appreciate you stopping by. You saved us tonight, and we won't make it so long the next time, but appreciate your knowledge.
No problem, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brad. The guy, Brad Tejeda, you see the banner at the bottom of the screen there from Canes Insight. We'll wrap it up right here at the Voice of College Football for another Thursday night. Brad filling in for the wholesome one. If you missed last night's show with Cam Underwood from State of the U, check it out. We had a good time, as we always do, breaking down the Canes. Everybody that we bring on here, whether that's, of course, Cam Underwood and the wholesome one with their regular time slots on Wednesday and Thursday, Paul Scoop on the U, Brad Tejeda. We got Northwest Kane and Jordan as well, who delivered post-game each and every week here at the Voice of College Football Miami. We try to give you a well-rounded look and perspective on Miami football. And, of course, I've got my thoughts as well. We are going to do a live stream here fairly soon. I don't want to pin myself down to anything in particular because I'm going to do the same live stream on each one of the team channels because I want to get your perspective, even though we've got a good thing going right here on the Miami channel in particular. This being our most successful, thanks to all of you, this is our most successful team channel. So thank you all for that. Certainly I want to talk to all of you and definitely get your thoughts on how we can make it even better. So expect me over the next couple months to do a live stream here on the Miami channel and on all the channels to, again, talk directly with you on how we can improve the product. Always looking to do that. Best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football right here at the Voice of College Football. Do we hit that goal every day? No. But we give it our damnedest. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. We will see you soon. Next live show, Friday, Oklahoma Live, 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central. Oklahoma Live. Falconer X. Yes, the next live show. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Friday, 12:30 Eastern. I love you guys too, but it's not going to happen. 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central. I'm a loyal guy. You should be able to at least appreciate that. 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central, Oklahoma Live on Friday. And then our West Virginia live show coming up Friday at 8 Eastern. If you are interested in helping us build these channels, we want to get them all to 1,000 subscribers. That is key for a couple different reasons. One in particular, that YouTube takes you seriously when you get to 1,000 subs. So check out our long list, most of them represented by the helmets back here, our long list of shows, and any channel that is not at 1,000 subs, even if you hate that team, like I'm going to thank like a zillion people on here because I know that many of you told me, and I'm sure some of you didn't tell me, that you still took my direction and still fulfilled the request to even subscribe to the Notre Dame channel when we were trying to get that to 1,000. We got to 1,000. If you're subscribed to the Notre Dame channel and you hate Notre Dame as much as I probably think you do, you can definitely unsubscribe now. We're safely over 1,000. I think we're good to go. You can unsubscribe to the Notre Dame channel, but thank you for that. Our priorities right now would be LSU's over 800 subs. West Virginia, we've got a weekly show, and we really want to build the West Virginia channel as well, right here at the Voice of College Football. Look at that. See, Falconer X. It did not surprise me that Falconer X bit his lip, cringed, and went through with it. Subscribe to the Notre Dame channel, and then you can unsubscribe. So the worst is over. I think Notre Dame and Florida State would be the worst. We got Florida. Florida's at about 650 subs. We would love to get that to 1,000. So if you can pain yourself to subscribe to the Florida channel, that would be my last brutal ask of all of you. So again, West Virginia, LSU, Florida would be primary. Georgia's at about 750. Would love to get that there as well. All right. Appreciate y'all. And we will see you next Wednesday right here at the Voice of College Football for our Miami show. Of course, it's every Wednesday and Thursday. Bring your friends, and we'll see you then. Again, Oklahoma, 12:30 Eastern tomorrow, and West Virginia at 8 p.m. Eastern. See you then.